I'm sure I don't have to remind anyone of the horrific attack that took place in Brussels today. At least 40 dead and many more injured in a horrific attack on innocent people. I will of course send our condolences to Brussels, and I now ask you, if you are able, to stand for a few moments' silence.
Provost, before we do that, could I suggest that we write to the Belgian consul in Penicuik as well, because he is actually in Midlothian, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
I was going to suggest that anyway.
Yeah,
right?
thank you. Thank you. I will now ask the Reverend Halley to say a few words.
For those who would like to, I invite you to join me in a short prayer. We join in heart and mind and soul with one another in this time of remembering, and in our common humanity with our sisters and brothers in Brussels and across Belgium at this time of distress and loss and sadness. O God, if you did walk this earth in Jesus of Nazareth, and if you are with us in your Holy Spirit as we meet here today, we ask that you would be close to all who grieve. In this Holy Week, Christians everywhere remember that on the cross and in the resurrection, you met and challenged all oppression and violence, not with human power, but with compassion, mercy, and a love stronger than death. And that we are thankful that you entered into solidarity with all who suffer, all who know oppression and no violence, and that in the cross and in your resurrection, you brought from darkness new hope for our world. Amen.
Thank you. Again, welcome everyone to this meeting of Midlothian Council, Tuesday the 22nd of March 2016. Do you have any apologies?
Thanks, Provost. We've got apologies from Councillor De Vink.
Thank you. Order of business.
Thanks, Provost. The order of business is as the agenda that's been circulated. Please note that there's an additional report has been previously circulated in relation to item 4.1. We have two office bearers of Lothian Mine Workers Convalescence Home Trust to present the deputation 4.1. An additional paper has also been tabled in relation to the leader's response to item 6.1, and an additional paper has just been circulated in relation to item 8.3.
Thank you. If there are any declarations, they may be declared at any time. I personally will be declaring an interest in item 4.1 and 7.3, and I will hand the chair over to Councillor Coventry to attend to that matter of business.
I'll be declaring an interest in the same two items, Provost. Councillor
Russell as well. Thank you. We now move on to item 4.1, and I will now hand over to the Deputy Provost, Councillor Coventry.
So this item is a request from the Lothian Mine Workers Convalescent Home to address the Council. Now, the first question is whether the Council wishes to hear from the deputation. The standing orders only state that the Council may hear from the deputation and are otherwise silent as to the rules surrounding deputations. Now, I would suggest that if we are to hear from the deputation, that it be on the following terms: that only 2 members of the deputation can address the Council, that they can only address the meeting for a maximum of 10 minutes in total. There would then follow a maximum period of 10 minutes for question and answers. The deputation can only inform the Council, and we should bear this in mind, that they should only inform the Council and may not request the Council to do anything. That would require a petition, which is a separate process. Are the members happy to hear the deputation on that basis? Okay, so can I invite the deputation? So you've got 10 minutes to.
Convalescent Home Trust. Rab Amos is the Vice Chairman, and we thank you for hearing us this morning. Chair, we're rather reluctant to appear this morning because we've had a good relationship with Midlothian Council over the years, and it was a bit with reluctance that we decided to come today. But we feel that the elected members should at least be aware of the situation that we are facing. May I, at this stage, ask you if be allowed to distribute these? It's a letter that was sent, but it's been amended, the one that the members have got. But I've made slight adjustments to this document, which the members might wish to be aware of.
Yes, fine, yeah.
Chair, it's over 15 years ago when there was a real threat to the closure of the miners' home in Gullen. Midlothian Council and others were to the forefront of the campaign to save it from closure. So much so that when the battle was won, Midlothian and East Lothian Councils agreed to accept a trusteeship each, which was incorporated in the trust deeds of the new trust. Midlothian Council and East Lothian have been, over the last 15 years, has supported Houghton Lodge with core funding with all party support. Midlothian's yearly core funding of £10,000 service level agreement enabled the Trust to plan 12 months ahead and ensure that the staff and services were in place and to advertise to residents of Midlothian that we were open for business. Without this core funding in place, it was impossible for residents of Midlothian to make arrangements as their plans to spend 10 days at Houghton Lodge during the summer months. The core funding, if it wasn't in place, you couldn't very well wait till the week before the home opened to find out whether we had enough money to open the home. Over these last 15 years, with the core funding in place and the fund raised by ourselves of over £200,000, the Trust has provided 10 full days full board respite break for over 2,000 Midlothian residents at Houghton Lodge. The high standard of care we deliver has been acknowledged by many individuals, GPs, organisations involved with the care of the elderly and people involved in the health service. The Scottish Government Minister Fergus Ewan also visited Houghton Lodge, where he praised the work of the Trust and the care we took for the elderly. I would now like to address the reasons why I think your officials are recommending the service level agreement be dropped. Your officials are requesting, this is in their words, that we align our services with their eligibility criteria in terms of the needs of those accessing our services. What this in essence means, the Council takes £10,000 core funding from us and gives it to Midlothian small wee breaks. The wee breaks, ladies and gentlemen, is a good scheme. I think it's a very imaginative scheme and I support it wholeheartedly. And we, for the last 2 years, has been actually supporting the officials in trying to promote the wee break scheme. And we think it's a great scheme. But the wee break scheme's only for carers. And what we've tried to do and develop and help is that carers who didn't want to leave their mother or father or their brother at home would bring them to Houghton Lodge with them. So we actually support the scheme. But the wee breaks scheme cannot guarantee us one person. You say, how many folk do you think they're going to send? They can't guarantee us one person. Our trust is able to provide 200 each year. The wee breaks, without the wee breaks really brings nothing to us. Because at the moment we've got the core funding, and if our normal folk didn't turn up, or we make way for them, the wee breaks only pay the same as what's happening with the folk that come to us. So we get no financial benefit from that, though we support it. We've actually recruited members of your staff come to the home during the summer season, and we sign folk up for the wee breaks, because we support, I think it's a great scheme. The wee breaks can't guarantee us anyone, because the people who apply for wee breaks can go anywhere they like. They can go to Blackpool, they can go up north, they can sit in the house, in the garden. They don't necessarily be forced to come to us. We'll lose £10,000. Every successful wee break applicant costs the council, and it's a good scheme, 400 quid. But they don't have to come to us. In light, and this is quoting the officials again, in light of best value for public funding, the 10,000 service level agreement, Lothian Mine Workers Trust costs are £84. It costs Midlothian £84 to send a resident to enjoy 10 days respite break and full board to Gulling. But if you want to break that down further, it costs £8.40. It's costing you £8.40 that core funding to send a resident of Midlothian to spend 10 days with activities and everything. The best value for public funding, if you want to work it out, for 122, because about 122 residents come from Midlothian. If you want to work out 120 funding for wee breaks, if you want to divide that into what it costs the council £48,000 to run that wee break system, £48,000. If you want to break that down, it's costing £40 a day to bring somebody to Houghton Lodge. And we're actually doing it for £8.40. And we're not competing, we're just saying this is what the facts are. The project provides, our project provides, res-like breaks for Midlothian residents, most of whom are elderly and frail, who suffer from a multitude of health problems, not only brought on by age, but as a result of occupational hazards of the industry. Respites and breaks are allowed. They allow their families to have breaks so they can continue their caring role. It also prevents the role that can maintain the elderly in their own homes, which is quite important. If you go to many of our nursing homes, and I'm not being critical of them, you go in, folk are sitting like zombies. You know, no activities, nothing. You come to Houghton Lodge, it's full of activities in the place. And the folk come in, as I say, come when they arrive, they're getting ready to get measured. They go away, they've got a spring in their heel and ready for another turn at Houghton Lodge. There's also a preventive role that can maintain the elderly in their own homes. It contributes to the community, they strengthen the friendship amongst the peers and make new friends, return to their homes more and able to cope. Unfortunately, the service level agreement has not been renewed by the council for the 2016-17, and we therefore request that the council should, at least which you have the deputation today, and we are convinced that the need to continue the funding through the service level agreement, in our opinion, would be the best value for public value funding finance. We hope that you will look at this at some time, Chair, and get the figures and whatnot from your officials, but the figures I've given are accurate. These figures, what we're giving you, is what it costs us, and our problem is that the core funding from yourselves in East Lothian is where we start off with, so we can plan a year ahead, and that sets us off and then we actually we've raised over £200,000 ourselves as well, and we still go on raising funds. I thank you for listening to me, and Rab, do you want to just thank the...
Once again, on
Sorry,
behalf
can I
of
just say, you know, we did agree 10 minutes in total, so
is that too much?
we've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay. Well, once again, just basically thanking you very much for the deputation being allowed on behalf of the Management Committee. And, you know, as David Boone has indicated quite clearly, you know, the important work that we are doing within our local communities, the development of the well-being of our communities, is all down to that hard, that £10,000 that we are getting for Midlothian Council at present. And that is the key area, the financial support that we need in order that we can continue to give that well-being and quality of life for our communities.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, and thank you for keeping within the 10 minutes. Thank you. So I'll open it up now to the councillors for questions to the two representatives from the Convalescence Home. Councillor Constable.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I was wondering, is your organisation registered with the Care Inspectorate?
Pardon?
Are you registered with the Care Inspectorate?
I'm not sure on that. We've been providing respite and care since 1947 at Whatton Lodge, and I wouldn't be able to answer that. I don't think we're registered because we're not a nursing home or as such. We're 1947 we provided. I would be telling a lie if I said yes.
Councillor Emery.
Thanks, Acting Provost. Just a question regarding best value. I think you alluded in your presentation to the fact that you know, the money in terms of best value as it rolls out is £8.40 per person per day. Have you met with the officers regarding best value to go through the needs and concerns regarding that, and what were the results of that?
We did meet. We've been meeting officials for the last 18 months, and the former leader, Owen Thompson, actually got it resolved because the official kept telling us we're on a grant. And I kept insisting, we've got your letter saying we're on a service level agreement. So it took about 18 months to resolve that one. And during that period as well, we've been actually working with the officials on the wee grant, the wee breaks. But as I said, the wee breaks brings nothing to us. It's the core funding which allows us to say, yes, we'll open next year, engage the staff, etc., etc. But in one of the letters that they sent, they said that we don't, the value, you know, it's the value that we isn't there. Now, they haven't bet and said, by the way, there's a list of stuff that you don't tick the boxes. Nobody ever said to us, by the way, don't meet our criteria. I don't know what their criteria is. So no, that has never happened.
Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. I'm advised that you were recently awarded £1,000 from taking part in the small grants competitive bidding process under the Health and Physical Activities grant stream. And you mentioned in that application the surveys you carry out with the service users. So I was wondering if you could tell us more about the questions you ask and the responses you're getting from these service users, please.
Yes, the reason we applied, because we had this problem for over 2 years about, oh, you're getting a grant. Well, no, a grant. You've got to be like everybody else. If there to be cuts in grants, she says, of course, if we were on a grant, but we weren't on a grant. The officials put us on a service level agreement. And we were criticised because we hadn't, at that time, oh, you didn't apply for the new grant system. When she says, well, but we weren't on a grant. Why can we apply for a grant when we're on a service agreement? It would be quite wrong because we've actually got agreement with the council. So we're actually sort of forced into, on this occasion, putting in for a grant saying you'll get £3,500 in it at least. So we did that, rather than offend folks saying, well, there you are, you haven't applied again. That's the reason why we did that. Your council said to us, you're on a service level agreement. And there was no reason for us to apply for funding from other grant from the council. Does that answer you?
What about when the people come down and have their respite visit, when you're asking them in their surveys, what kind of questions do you ask them and what kind of responses do you get back?
Well, we've done one or two. We actually, when the 192 to 200 folk are there, 32 people in our intake, we talk to them, get feedback from them on how they're enjoying the place, what's the food like, what's the accommodation like, what sort of entertainment is laid on for them. We get that. We also had a survey done with a professional group on whether, because at one time the beneficiaries paid nothing, whether, what's facilities, what they ticked off, and that resulted in the beneficiaries saying, no, we should be paying something ourselves as well. So that happened as a result of an extensive survey of beneficiaries and others. And that came back and we actually took action on it, about staffing, about food, about activities. So that takes place all as an ongoing.
No other questions? No? Yeah, Councillor. Yeah.
Just wondering, is it suitable for disabled people, the building? Are you DDA compliant?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, if you come at the lodge, and by the way, there's been many, when I say that in support, there's been many councillors from all parties have visited continually Houghton Lodge, as I include the Minister. Yes, the lodge itself is wheelchair. You come in and there's a chair that takes up the stairs to the bedrooms. There's 8 bedrooms up the stairs. The cottage has got 5 bedrooms, a lounge and a kitchen, and 3 of the bedrooms down the stairs with access off the street for 3 bedrooms down the stairs. We're just waiting to get someone to try and get an hour chairlift for the cottage. But yes, it's accessible for chairs, wheelchairs.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just interested by the use of the term service level agreement rather than a grant. I'm just wondering, under the normal terms of a service level agreement, if it's closed off, if it no longer applies, then your obligations cease to the council. Can I ask what your obligations are and what service the council will effectively lose if the service level agreement is terminated?
The word service level agreement comes from your council, not us, because they put us on it, which is, that's fine, but then later on they say you're on a grant. So it took about 18 months to resolve that one. What would the council lose? Well, the Midlothian Wee Breaks are pushing at the moment is for carers. What we do, we provide every year a whole range, a full 10 days, 6 intakes for elderly and frail people from Midlothian who are engaged in, socially with the folk who come here. If need be, they're carers as well, sometimes come and visit them while they're there, or a district nurse. But Midlothian would lose, 2,000 places where the elderly can come for a respite break for 10 days full board to beautiful surroundings in a place with social interaction.
So what you're saying is there is currently a responsibility placed upon the home to provide this service to the council in return for the £10,000, and if this ceases, then you'll no longer be obliged to provide any service to Midlothian residents.
No,
is that correct?
what it will mean is that when it started, was that we haven't got any surpluses, you know. We've raised over £200,000 ourselves. We run a golf tournament, make between £5,000 and £15,000. We do other charitable. The money that we raise, that £200,000 is included, and the core funding from yourselves and East Lothian is the basis of us saying we're open next year, because we've got funds, we can engage staff, we can organise, and without that, we can't open because we can't commit ourselves to staffing. Say 6 people, we're taking you on from June to September next year, find out there's no cash in the bank. And that is the core funding through that several other agreement, which allows us to open. And after that, we've got to fundraise for ourselves. And we've done that. We do that every year. So over 200,000, maybe even more, that we've raised to keep the home open. If that's not there, there's a big, and I'm not saying it's a big threat, we'll be unable to open because we can't commit the trustees and whatnot to engage on contracts and whatnot, and there's no money to pay anybody. That's a dilemma. We're not saying we shouldn't suffer like everybody else in cuts, but we're saying that the council was aware they were involved in the campaign, they passed resolutions from the council, and they also opted to become trustees, East Lothian and Midlothian, of that trust, because of the service it provided to the citizens of Midlothian.
Just one last question. That's the 10 minutes up. So, Councillor Young.
I think it was just partially covered there by the delegate, but I think it was just off the back of Councillor Baxter's question. Is it correct that what you're saying to us today isn't that if the agreement doesn't go forward, then you would choose not to take people? It's the opposite, that the risk is that if the agreement or the funding in whatever way it's provided goes away, you might not be able to do it at all. Is that's what you're addressing?
No. We're committed to residents of East and Midlothian coming to Wharton Lodge. It's not as if we're saying we're threatening by, we don't get the money, there's nobody coming for Midlothian. We were desperate because what we're saying is, yes, if we don't get the money, we're in a real serious position. Not that we wouldn't want folk to come from Midlothian. If somebody says, well, you know, you're not charging enough. He says, well, if working class folk want to come, a couple, it's 300 quid. We make a concession occasionally for somebody who's belonging to the industry, but it's £300. Now, it's maybe not much to us, but it's a lot of money for the folk out there to fork out their pocket 300. And if there was a vacancy, because we get phone calls all the time, is there anybody not turning up? Could we come down again? That's 600 quid. So, I mean, for somebody to say, and the bottom line is, it's costing the council 84 quid to send somebody for 10 days, full board and entertainment. Folk are all lively, shoveling coal, firing shots, dancing, you know. Instead of going to a nursing home and you say, they're all like zombies here, by the way. It's the opposite. No, we would want to continue. But there's a real peril that if that core funding disappears, we're knackered.
Thank you, Mr. Bruin. Mr. Amos, thank you for that deputation and presentation. So, yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. Could I invite the councillors back who left earlier?
Okay. Move to item 5, minutes of the previous meetings. 5.1, a note of the meeting of Midlothian Council of 9th February 2016. 5.2, note of meeting of Midlothian Council 8th March 2016. Yep. Councillor Muirhead.
I'd like to raise an issue on this minute. Pages 1-1058 and 1-1059 referring to the deliberations on the Council's budget and the financial strategy paper 5.1. Provost, it's my belief that there's a material change has occurred that would warrant the Council rediscussing the question of the budget, and if you'll bear with me, I'd just like to explain why I say that, Provost. There was debate at the budget around the proposal that was made in writing by the Labour Party, and there was questions raised by Councillor Parry about the accuracy of that. Our exact words at that meeting was, I just wanted to make a point about reserves. I don't know where you're getting your 15 or 17 million pounds figure from. The uncommitted reserves is 12.754 million, which is on page 8, section 9. Provost, it's my belief that the SNP administration were under the impression, when the budget was set, that the amount of reserves that was left, once we had deducted the 2.66 million to bridge the budget gap, that the amount was left was 10.088 million. Now, I think that Councillor Parry didn't understand our figures, and the £15 million that we mentioned as unallocated reserves at the start was because she was under that misunderstanding. That was later exacerbated by a statement made by the leader of the council at Gorebridge Community Council meeting on 15th of March. The council leader stated that the council's reserves at the start, when we started to deliberate the budget, was 12.754 million, and that once the 2.66 million was deducted from that to bridge the gap, that the resultant amount left in reserves would be 10.088 million. Now, that quite clearly is not the case. I gave Councillor Johnson the opportunity, we showed her the papers, explained what I believe to be the case, and she disputed that quite clearly in front of the Community Council, in front of the press, that the actual figure that was left was 10.088 million. As I say, I asked her several times about that, and she confirmed that that was her belief. Now, clearly, the leader of the council was under the impression that we were £2.66 million in terms of reserves worse off than we actually are. And if you recall, I did make an attempt at the meeting, because I believed when we were sitting at the council meeting that seemed to be the case to me. And I did ask for clarity, and I didn't really believe that we had the kind of clarity that would have been helpful in that circumstance. There were other issues, I think, that are material to the administration's understanding of a particular decision that we took in the budget, and that is the cuts to the CAT teams. Councillor Johnson, at the meeting, when I reported my understanding of the budget and referred to the document that I referred to here at the budget meeting, indicating the level of activity that was carried out by the CAT teams over the 3-month period to the end of December. Councillor Johnson's reply to that was not just the activity of the CAT team, but was the activity of the community policing in general as well. Now, that quite clearly, I mean, I've checked that with the Chief Inspector. the content of that document is purely the activity of the CAT team. So I think there's a lack of appreciation as far as administration is concerned about the consequences of removing these police officers in terms of the work that they do within our community. She also raised the issue of police abstraction and indicated that one of the problems with the CAT team were that they could be taken away at any time for duties like, and she quoted, attending in police and golf tournaments and the like. Now, again, that is completely the reverse of what is true here. I consulted with the Chief Inspector about that matter as well when I read the initial document. There's a service level agreement that exists between ourselves and the police that mean that they cannot be abstracted for these reasons unless there's an emergency situation. Clearly, it's clearly the case that the administration, and in particular the leader, is not aware of the circumstances and the consequences.
Excuse me, Provost, point of order.
Okay, can I have your point of order, please?
Provost, I understood that Councillor Muirhead was challenging the minute, and instead he seems to be extending the debate, and I'm concerned about the confusion about challenging a minute and extending the debate.
Quite right, Councillor. Could you address the minute of the meeting, please, and note the minutes of your Community Council?
Provost, I'm explaining why I think that there is a material change in circumstances that would warrant us debating this issue again.
Councillor, could you please address the minutes of the previous meeting and stick to that? I don't want to hear about your Community Council meeting. I don't want to hear your discussions with the Chief Inspector. You said you're raising a point on the minutes. Please raise your point on the minutes.
Provost, my point on the minutes is that there is a material change in the circumstances, and I would like to hear from the administration answers to the issues
point of order again. The minute
raised.
is supposed to be a reflection of whether or not we are being asked to confirm or deny or amend this record of what took place, and we're being asked to consider whether or not this is an accurate record of what took place at the time, not whether or not there is additional information that has come to light subsequently.
Councillor Muirhead, could you please address your point you're making about the previous minutes, and we can get moving on and we can get an answer from Councillor Parry and Councillor Johnson, because you've raised both their names in this. So please either finish up or address what your point you're making on the minutes.
Provost, I'm raising this as a matter arising from the minutes. If you had actually left for about 10 more seconds, it would have been finished. What I'm saying is there are material changes here that I think would warrant us reconsidering it, and I would urge, I would first of all ask if the monitoring officer could confirm if what I'm saying is correct, that would warrant a material consideration. Now, if the monitoring officer does not do that, then I would ask that the administration take on board what's been said here and them themselves support us and amend it and a vote on to suspend standing orders so that we can discuss this matter again, because it's quite clear that the administration did not understand what they were doing when they were taking decisions on the budget.
Can we have a word from the lawyer, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think the difficulty here is we probably have two different questions floating around at the same time.
Yeah, but what one addresses the minutes? I'm not caring about the other one. I want to ken what's the question that addresses the minute?
The minutes are up for approval as a record of the meeting of the 8th of March, and to my understanding it is an accurate record of that minute. Councillor Muirhead has made another point regarding the item there, which is that it's on 714. Regarding a second reconsideration of this matter, but I suspect it's not so much the point Councillor Muirhead was making, which I can come to in a minute, I suppose it's when that matter should be raised. It's raised, I think if we can agree the accuracy of the minutes, it's really what we need to do at this stage. It's a matter arising from which Councillor Muirhead has made. It would then be a matter for yourself as chairs whether you wish to take that on at this time or whether it would be open to Councillor Muirhead to make a motion to a later meeting of the Council. He has given his arguments for it very succinctly this afternoon. I would reserve my position on that in the meantime. I'm happy to take that on if the Council wishes to discuss that this afternoon, however.
The minutes, as I see them, and I've read them, are accurate to the minute that what happened at that meeting. So, as far as I'm concerned, the minutes are accurate, and you haven't raised a point on the minutes, except other points that happened at another meeting. So, I'm sorry, Councillor Muirhead, are you suggesting that the minutes are incorrect, and are you moving that? No. So the minutes are accurate.
Matter arising from the minutes.
Well, what is the matter arising from the minutes? You went on about a meeting you had at the Community Council.
The matter arising is that the decision was taken and the administration were not aware of the full facts. A decision was taken at that meeting on the basis of a misunderstanding by the administration of the level of reserves that this council had, and I'm asking that be reconsidered now.
The reserves that were reported to us were reported to us by Mr. Fairley. So how can they be? He's challenging Mr. Fairley's record of the reserves.
I am challenging your leaders, our leaders, the information that our leader gave to the Community Council meeting. What I'm challenging is that at the time
Community
that the
Council
meeting
excuse
took
me,
place,
Councillor Muirhead, turn your microphone off. Your Community Council meeting didn't happen here. I didn't have a minute of that minute. If you wish to raise the minute of the Community Council, then raise it at the Community Council. Councillor Johnson.
I think the Labour Party are actually being quite desperate here. I believe that our budget has been a strong budget for the local people and protects our services and the jobs in difficult financial times, especially in view of Westminster's austerity agenda. I think you're being really desperate and trying to distract the people and the folk in here for the fact that it was you and your party who lined up with the Tories during the referendum to keep Scotland's budget under Westminster control. The SNP in Midlothian is focused on delivering for the local folk at every level, the Council, Westminster and in Holyrood, and we will continue to work harder than ever to retain people's trust. We believe Labour will leave you to your familiar tactic of partisan carping from the sidelines as you try and fail to distract people from your record of abject failure both locally and nationally. And that's all I'm going to say, and I approve the minute as a correct record.
Councillor Constable.
I just move, it says here, item 5.1, note meeting of Midlothian Council submitted for approval as a correct record. I submit we should just accept that just now.
We are now moving on.
I move suspension to standing orders that we reopen the discussions, Provost.
I think you need 10 people to be able to do that. Can we have a show of hands to suspend standing orders? Okay, can we have a seconder to suspend standing orders?
Yeah, Provost, due to the fact that it was quite clear from where we are sitting that you didn't understand what the current reserves were after the £2.6 million had been taken from it. That's even as exacerbated, but even discussions that we've had since then with the Deputy Leader of the Council who tell us our reserves weren't as good as Clagbannock Sheriff Council's, and that was at Polton Hall. It's quite clear that you didn't get this right. We're asking that you reopen up and allow at least us to discuss your motion, and if not the full motion, at least the police cuts, and allow us to discuss that in here today. And I would make a final point. At the end of on the accuracy of the minutes, at the end of the point on page 1059, the very last bullet point in the paragraph at the bottom, members voted in favour of the administration recommendation and no members voted against it. There was nothing to vote on. If you look at the actual motions put forward, Councillor Parry moved that the recommendations contained within the report were accepted with the following amendments. The amendments are then listed, and then the counter motion. Once that vote had taken place, there was nothing left to vote on. So I don't actually know what that sentence is in. But I've seconded Jim's proposal to amend the first standing orders and allow us to reopen up this discussion.
Well, let me explain the point 9. On that, the members voted in favour of the administration's recommendations and no members voted against it. I called for a vote on the opposition's budget, which was voted on. Do you agree with that?
No, Provost, the minutes are quite accurate on the fact is what we voted on was a motion by Councillor Perry. It's in the minutes, have a read of them.
We voted on the Labour group's amended budget. That was voted down. I then called for a vote on the motion put forward by Councillor Parry with the amended recommendations. The recommendations would have been voted on, but we didn't go for the recommendations as on the report. They were changed, and therefore I called for a second vote. There was 9 votes for and none against. The minute is accurate in that respect. I need 2/3 of a majority of the members here to suspend standing orders. Can we please have a show of hands for those in favour of suspending the standing orders?
Eight.
Sorry, you do not have a 2/3 majority. The minutes are passed.
Could I ask the monitoring officer to rule on the last point, please?
Sorry, Councillor McGuinness, just clarify by the last point, do you mean, I take it you don't mean the vote on suspending standing orders, it's the point of the minutes of the meeting?
Point on the minutes where it quite clearly, it says here, it's not item 9, it's 9 members voted in favour of the administration recommendation, no member voted against it.
Sorry, okay, that was trying point. That was the last sentence in that.
Chair, to clarify my understanding of the procedure, the officer's recommendations cannot ever form a motion. That's for the members to do, not the officers. In this case, Councillor Parry moved that the officer's recommendations be accepted subject to the 2 amendments. This was duly seconded. Councillor Milligan then moved the Labour group's proposal that there would be a more cautious savings package, and that was also as an amendment, and that was also duly seconded. Councillor Baxter made a second amendment, but that wasn't seconded and therefore formed no part of the vote at that point. We then had the motion by Councillor Parry and the amendment from Councillor Milligan. The vote at the second last paragraph there would be the vote of the amendment against the motion. At that stage, the amendment didn't, the motion didn't, the amendment did not find favour against the motion, leaving only the motion to be the motion of the council. At that point, the council's will is as there. So the council had approved the budget as moved by Councillor Parry. The second vote doesn't change that. It can only re-emphasise it because the council's will was at the first vote when the amendment fell.
So you agree there was nothing left to vote on?
So the minute is accurate. There was a vote called, and it was 9-0. It is accurate. I remember calling for that vote. I'm having no more discussion on this. Your proposal that the standing orders be suspended has fallen. We now move to 5.3, minutes for meeting, for noting and consideration of any recommendations. Meeting at the Cabinet, the 12th of January 2016. Cabinet, 9th February 2016. Planning Committee, 12th of January 2016. General Purposes Committee, 5th of January 2016. Appeals Committee, 29th of July 2015. Local Review Body, 19th of January 2016. Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee, 24th of November 2015. Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee, 25th of November 2015. Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee, 19th and 27th of January 2016. Audit Committee, 8th of December 2015. Okay. Move to item number 6, questions to the Council Leader, and I believe there are written responses to the questions. Have these been handed out? Okay, thank you. Item number 7, motions. 7.1, notice of a motion by Councillor Johnson and countersigned by Councillor Constable.
Thank you. The difficulties we're facing with GPs is not down solely to house building. There are other issues such as changes in our population demography, and some practices have had issues recruiting new partners and locums. And there are other issues that affect the practices as well, such as changes in their demography and changes in the aspirations of their workforce. This council will work in partnership with the GPs to help improve the situation as best we can. And we do know that there's been a big recruitment drive to get GPs and other doctors into Scotland, and that's coincided with admissions into universities as well. So our plan is to continue to work with the NHS and acknowledge that the shortages of doctors going into general practice, and we have to remember that some doctors also have preferences where they want to work, just like other professions. And it's vital we're not unhelpful or appear unattractive when we're trying to recruit these talented people to work in Midlothian. As well as that, within each practice, their makeup is different, the demography of each individual practice area, the other health professionals who are working in the practice, the specialities within the practice, the appointment system, and guaranteeing waiting times for an appointment will change the way our practice delivers appointments and healthcare. And we should be especially supportive to make sure that doctors can provide appointments to people, taking into account clinical considerations and need, and make sure that's the primary consideration when doing that. And we remain committed to working with NHS Lothian and not against them. And I hope everyone can support that.
Councillor Constable to second.
Thank you, Provost. In second this motion, I'd just like to say some experience. As a member of the IJB, I attended a presentation we all heard from Dr. Hardman of one of the voluntary practices of a day in the life of a GP. And it's a hard day, and we always must applaud the work that they do for us. And we always get such excellent reports of the treatment people do get when they see the doctors. I understand there are appointment difficulties. We do have this shortage. It's a national problem. It is a hard job. Dr. Hardman explained how it could be simplified in some way, very often with the clerical aspects of it, and let's hope work is done to carry that out. It is just, we are an expanding county. We have issues with that number of GPs, and it's good to see that the Scottish Government are doing so much to try and address this. But it will take some time, and what we must do is support this work, and especially the second paragraph, I would emphasise that too.
Councillor Milligan.
Yeah, I think there's maybe, again, some misunderstanding. As far as I'm concerned, the junior doctor's nowhere near qualified to be a GP. That's them just starting on their way as a GP. But however, we welcome getting any doctors, whether they're junior doctors or whatever, and any encouragement. I note in your motion you say the Scottish Government have recently launched a recruitment drive, yet you shot down in flames our motion last year on the 12th of May where we called on the Scottish Government to take urgent action to encourage more students into GP training and to recruit more GPs. It's a pity this motion doesn't even go into the aspect of trying to encourage practising GPs who are due to retire to maybe stay on, look at trying to find ways to encourage any GPs that have retired to come back into work, and to look at various other ways of trying to deal with the shortages. If we're trying to kid on to the general public out there that there's no a crisis, and that crisis is getting worse every month, we're at the kidology. There's a major crisis across Scotland, and certainly in Midlothian, and Jim touched on it earlier today when we talked about the single plan, on the crisis that's faced us. We're trying to get GPs, trying to get appointments, and the sheer pressure that doctors have been under. We welcome working with NHS and always will continue to, but we need to also put in the support to NHS and make sure the doctors and the doctor staff aren't at the brunt, the receiving end, when people can't get registered or can't get appointments. So therefore, yes, it's important to continue to show that we support our doctors, we support the staff involved in this. So therefore, it's quite, I think, a pity that the SNP group couldn't just have joined with us last year when we called for urgent action at that stage and to put this forward. I wholeheartedly see where you're coming from with the next steps of the £250 million to support integrated health and social care. The problem is the councils are ripping half the money back out the back doors of that money, as this council did, because Hittle had already committed money into these areas, so the council's staying back its money. So the real terms here is it's not going up anything like that, it's just being paid a different way. Councils got their money cut, government took it and then reinvested some of it, and councils took their money back the other way. So it is a bit of a fudge. But anything, and I suppose it's better late than never, that we have the SNP at last admitting that there's a crisis.
Councillor Parry.
Thanks, Provost. I think the motion that you're referring to was actually about GP out-of-hour service, so it is about something different. I'm not going to argue with many of the points that you made there. I think all councillors round the table would like to help people make sure they get appointments. But I think the approach that we are taking is the right one, which is about supporting GPs, which is about working with the Scottish Government to make sure that we're thinking about the future and thinking about recruiting, and not just kind of lambasting them publicly and criticising GPs, which is, I feel like, what's been coming for the Labour Party quite recently. And the BMA yesterday released their report, which is called Urgent Prescription for General Practice, and they actually done some specific information, constituency information about Midlothian. And GPs in Midlothian are highlighting that demand for the appointments have increased, but what they're also saying is that the quality of service that their patients are able to deliver to patients over this period, they're now concerned that it's going to be subsequently deteriorated. So, you know, if you do really want to make improvements in terms of Midlothian residents, then work with us and let's take a much more positive approach rather than what you're currently doing, which is just political point scoring when it's really important to people. So I'd urge you to support this motion.
Councillor Muirhead.
There, Councillor Parry again saying something.
Can we have one meeting in here, please?
That's Councillor Parry again saying something with confidence that is just not true. She talks about us lambasting the administration when we moved the motion. I've just passed the motion round to her. If she wants to read it and then maybe just apologise, unlike others have not chosen to do today, when she sees that that was nothing but a positive, and some number of positive suggestions being put forward, but it was blocked because there was that belief that it was some kind of criticism, and it clearly wasn't.
Councillor Parry.
I'm happy to stand corrected on that, Jim, and I think the point that I'm talking about, lambasting, is I know there's been quite a lot of stuff in the local press, and I don't think we're disagreeing here, actually. I think what we're trying to say is, you know, let's both take the same kind of stance on this, but let's do it in a positive way, that's all.
Yeah, let's all try to move forward in a positive way for Midlothian. Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Provost. And I can only support the remark you just made about finding a positive way forward, because what concerns me when language like crisis is being used with regard to matters of health, and the message that sends to the residents of Midlothian can only be one a very serious alarm. No one round this table can possibly be unaware of the situation where we have more than the number of practices that we would wish to see being in a position where they are closing to new registrations of patients. But to call this a crisis would be exaggeration in the extreme. And if anyone doubts the validity of that remark, they only need to look south of the border to what's happening in the NHS there to understand what crisis looks like.
Thank you. Is the motion passed by the Council? Thank you very much. Item on your agenda 7.2, page 9, and a motion by Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Provost. I was hoping to bring consensus to this committee, but the way things are going, I'm a bit nervous. Yeah, I'll not say much. All the information is in the motion. It's part of a national campaign to recognise the fact that we live in a throwaway society and we really need to address that. Aberdeenshire Council passed a very similar motion not too long ago, and each council in Scotland is being asked to pass this or a very similar motion to try and get the national campaign underway. Basically, we're looking at changing lifestyles. At the moment, we've got a lot of bottles, cans, plastic and glass bottles are all being thrown away. We have a litter problem, we have a problem with disposing of our recyclable materials, and we also have large energy costs in producing glass, plastic, bottles and cans, etc. And this is all designed towards reducing all those costs, reducing the energy costs as well, cutting carbon emissions, generating local jobs, what's not to like basically. So I'd like to propose this motion.
Thank you. To be seconded by Councillor Coventry.
Thanks, Provost. This motion is designed to help create a clean, unpolluted, litter-free society, creating an incentive for members of the public to return bottles and perhaps even aluminium cans. In Europe alone, there are more than 100 million people who are living in countries with bottle deposit schemes, including Norway, Denmark, Finland and Estonia. At the moment, council taxpayers meet the costs of recycling, clean-up of litter and landfill, irrespective of their purchases. But under a drinks container deposit refund scheme, the costs of dealing with beverage packaging would be met by industry and by those who forgo their right to the refund of their deposit. Litter rates would fall, our streets would be cleaner, and recycling would increase dramatically. So I'm very happy to second the motion today.
Councillor Bennett.
Chair, I'd like to speak in support of the motion. I think we are making positive moves in Midlothian with the recycling plant that will be opening in Millerhill in 2 or 3 years' time and generating energy from waste, and I think that's a progressive step forward. But on the question, keeping the litter down in the streets, I've noticed, and I've had it, people, constituency of mine in Dalkeith, complaining about the amount of litter in Dalkeith town centre, and it would maybe help if we had more people cleaning the streets, especially at the weekend, in the areas like Dalkeith town centre.
Councillor Milligan.
Provost, yeah, I think Ian's in for the shock that he is going to get the unanimity that he was looking for here today. I think it's a positive motion. I think it's a reasonably well thought out. In fact, I'll go as far as to say it's a well thought out motion for somebody who's worked in and out the hospitality trade all his life. I can remember back in the 80s when you got deliveries to restaurants, public houses, etc. The guys who brought the beer bottles, the juice bottles, and all that, all brought them in and they taken all the empties out. You didn't need to send an R38 ton lorry round the road to go and get them and then crush them all up and take them away. It just makes common sense to actually, the guys that are delivering them, just load up the empty ones that have been returned and bring them back. I wholeheartedly support this motion because I think it probably was the way we should have went already years ago when we talked about recycling, and that was forcing the Coca-Cola companies, the beer companies and such like to have to recycle their bottles. One of the things I would also say is it's quite clear when you look at our recycling, and I would ask the officials to take this on board, when you look at our recycling, you quite often see deposited bottles lying in the recycling cans. Now, I'm aware that our guys used to just take them out and use them for different things, maybe when they were going to shops and stuff like that, and they were told they weren't allowed to. Maybe the officers, if we adopt this resolution, will accept that any of the bottles that are returnable that our staff can take out of there rather than send away to get crushed.
Thank you. Now, there's a headline for the advertiser. Agreement breaks out all over Midlothian Council. We now move back into the council's hokey-cokey. In, out, and shake it all about. I now pass the chair back over to the Deputy Provost, Councillor Coventry.
So this is a motion from the Midlothian Council Labour Group and proposed by Councillor Russell Emery.
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost. I don't think I need to say terribly much more to what we heard by way of the deputation here today. Suffice to say, though, we hear a lot spoken about austerity in this chamber, and here's an opportunity to do a little thing about it. £10,000 of core funding by way of a service level agreement, to my mind, in working out as we were told, and you know, I started getting my calculator out to work that out, £8.40 a day subsidy to getting people an opportunity to have a break down there, and for those that haven't been down to see it, a wonderful place and a heck of a lot of, dare I say, volunteering going on. And volunteering not by way of getting paid, but volunteering by way of going down there and doing a job of work because people do care. Now, I think there's a real opportunity here for £10,000 to continue to support the work that's done in Wharton Lodge. I didn't realise, Deputy Provost, that the service level agreement had been torn up. And as we heard today, for example, the wee breaks is a completely different entity altogether. It's something that stands or falls on its own. It will be taken up or not taken up by people, and they will not necessarily go down to Wharton Lodge. It's a life choice for them if they're getting that particular break. The council leader herself asked the question about what do the people think that go down there. From what I understand, there's been a lot of work done with them when they arrive, and at the end, when they go, it's like filling in any form. If you've been at a day's conference, saying, what did you think of the speakers, what did you think of the content, etc. But clearly there's adjustments made all along the way. But they don't just wait for core funding, Deputy Provost. They actually go down and they go out there and they run certain activities to get money in to augment what they do. Now, in finishing, Deputy Provost, because we have been on this merry-go-round today, on finishing, just suffice to say, it has always had all-party support. And that's one thing that it raises above any party politics, this particular activity. And I just hope today that all of us can support the motion, make sure that that money is reinstated. And the second part of the motion is the officers to go round and go down there with the office bearers and work out to see if the council is looking at what one calls following the public pound, or used to call that, and that is, are you getting value for money? So, Provost, Deputy Provost, in these few words, I'll just move the motion. Thanks.
Councillor Pottinger.
Yeah, just in seconding the motion, I'll not repeat what's been said at the presentation, but the value for money that is here. I think what you really have to appreciate is it's a site that we're protecting with a civil liberties agreement. It's a site that offers 10 days respite. This respite is so valuable to the people that get the respite and to their carers. Sometimes it's just good to know that the person you're caring for is in respite for 10 days, so you're free in your diary to do other things during that particular period. And the forward planning that's associated with that for some of the most vulnerable people, you know, the elderly and the frail and their carers, and the quality's impact on this is immense. I've had so many people telling me, you know, both carers and cared for people, how much they benefit this site, and this site needs to be able to plan ahead to be successful. Wee Breaks doesn't need to plan ahead. Wee Breaks will be different options to different people at different times and different places, you know, and it's right to have all that as well as this site for respite care. You can, as you say, I've been past it, and I know the locality, you know, and the area, and it is very tranquil and very pleasant. And I was unaware of the amount of activities they actually did within the centre as well now. But I think it would be silly not to protect this site with a service level agreement. A second.
Councillor Johnston.
We have an amendment to that, and Louise is just going to hand it out. We'll wait a minute or so. Cheers. I've got one, thanks. Sorry, at the first paragraph, after the council agrees to, we would like to remove the word reinstate and put in review. And then at the end of that first paragraph, we'd like to put in add on to ensure it meets the requirements of current Midlothian Council priorities. And then at the second paragraph, to take out within a 12-month period and replace for the council meeting of 17th of May. And we do that on the basis that we do value the work, and we believe that the people who go to Houghton Lodge do have value for money. But what we must, I believe we should do, is to encourage the Trust to apply for funding through all the grant funding streams that we have, like all the other voluntary and third-party sector organisations in Midlothian, through the grant scheme, the annual small grant fund to which they applied this year, and the 3-yearly larger grant scheme. And I think that they would be able to apply under the criteria health and physical activity, and the council officers and MVA are on hand to assist with this. I think that by regularising our grants allocation process, we assess all the grants on all the organisations on an equal footing, and that we will be very transparent in the work and the funding that we do.
Councillor Parry.
I'm happy to second Councillor Johnston's amendment.
So we have an amendment to the motion.
Deputy Provost, could I just say that I'm not prepared to accept that amendment, because it doesn't do what I'm trying to set out to do, and I'll explain that when you allow me, if you allow me to have a right reply.
Sorry, Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Provost. This particular issue is something which, at the very start, I saw as being fairly simplistic, and I tended to come to it from the same viewpoint as the council leader, that, you know, why have a special case, if you like, for mine workers that you don't have for other parts of society. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've realised that, you know, Midlothian has a huge history of mine working, and there's a huge number of people who have been affected by that. Mining is a special case. I feel that the health issues caused during the lifetime of the career of people in mining is horrendous. And to my mind, it's yet another, if you like, the care for these people in pure monetary terms is in effect a subsidy, yet another subsidy for fossil fuels. I feel that we talk about bonds for restoring mine workings to the original state. Where are the bonds to help the people whose lives have been destroyed and cannot be restored to their normal state? And I think that is a horrendous legacy. And given how much Midlothian has been impacted, I feel that we really do have a responsibility, as there isn't something that there should be from, it should be the Coal Board, it should be Scottish Coal, all those companies that have employed mine workers that should be responsible for this kind of care and are not providing it. And that, I feel, is quite atrocious. So my feeling is that given that there isn't anything else to fall back on, we do have a responsibility, a particular responsibility here. Russell referred earlier on to the amount of voluntary work that goes into the home, and reports have shown that for every £1 spent in the voluntary sector, £8 comes back out. And I think that if we end the service level agreement, then there's a clear risk that we will lose that facility for people who very much depend on it. And although I respect the council leader's amendment, my own feeling is it doesn't go far enough. I think that I don't want to have to sit through a presentation year after year after year because the home does not have that the confidence that money is going to come in. So my own feeling is that I can't support the amendment.
Councillor Imrie, did you want a right of reply to?
Well, at the end of the debate, Provost, if you allow me.
Councillor Pottinger.
Just a couple of things on the debate then, about the criteria. I mean, it's called Lothian Mine Workers Convalescent Home because it was set up by the Mine Workers Pension Scheme's money. And many mine workers' widows, and you can't bring these guys back to health, many guys' widows have benefited from this service. But the criteria is opened up now, and that they're taking people on different agendas and different options now. And if we make the decision today, they can organise for this summer, activities. And they can plan ahead. If we defer the decision to May, I don't think they'll give them enough time to plan ahead for intake figures and employment and recruitment and the organisation that they do with their programme. So I think we should just go ahead with this motion. But obviously we do accept that everything's up for review. Every voluntary organisation, every grant is up for review. But the time to review it isn't today. I think we could constantly reviewing the criteria and the conditions and the service level agreement, shall we say, will be up for future budgets kind of discussions. I can understand that. But I think just this motion should just go through today, but embracing the sentiments, what the amendment's trying to say.
Can I just say, is the name itself having the term convalescent, is that not slightly misleading? It does provide a care service, but it's not, in reality, a convalescence home.
Well,
would you agree?
It's not, Deputy Provost, you're quite correct. It's actually, people get a break, they go down there for 10 days. It's a holiday in a sense that they might not be able to have under normal circumstances, but because the council has read, both councils, East Lothian and Midlothian, recognised many years ago that there was an opportunity to have that for these folks that have been affected by, you're absolutely correct, mining, that they could go down there, they get a bit of support down there when they're down there, but it is not, in essence, what we would interpret it as convalescing in the truest word. It's convalescing by way of you getting a break. And that, you're quite right, it's a misnomer to actually say a convalescence home, and everybody thinks, oh, that's it, you've got nurses, doctors, if you can get one, that is, going in there day in and day out. You don't necessarily have that. So you're right.
I'll come back to you at the end, Councillor Imrie, to sum up. For Councillor Rosie, then Constable.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the thing is, I think there still is quite a few questions to be answered. And when the representative of the deputation that came here, he mentioned quite often discussions he'd had with our officials as regards ongoing. And to be fair, I mean, our officials haven't had a chance to respond to that. And this is where I think in the amendment, they would then have a chance if a report comes to Council for us to hear, well, what has, from their point of view, what was discussed. We've only heard one side. You also got to bear in mind that this organisation came before our Small Grants Committee to be assessed alongside other Midlothian organisations that do equally good work for our communities and the residents in Midlothian. So they've been compared with them, and the assessment was that they got £1,000. Now, what's to stop all these other organisations who came before the same, had to put the same application forms in for a grant, if they weren't happy with it, then coming back to us and saying, you know, why you've given them more money, why not us? So I think we've got to be sure before we make a decision on this, and this is all the amendments saying, that let's go away, let's find out what is, are we really getting value for money from what we will be paying them, what services they are properly, because I feel it wasn't just properly explained, just all that they do there, unfortunately. So my opinion is I would support the amendment on that grounds.
Dave's just said what I was going to say.
So I'll move it back to you, Councillor Imrie, just to sum up.
Thanks very much, Deputy Provost. Can I just say that there are a number of organisations within Midlothian that enjoy service level agreements. So it's not unique to this one. There's a number, and the reason for that is there is a difference between what they provide and what voluntary organisations provide that go through the grant scheme. The worry about the amendment, it's not that it fundamentally, well, it does fundamentally change it. What it does do is it talks about having a review and coming back in May. Now, we heard from the applicant, or the deputation, should I say, today, and it's there for everybody to know, these breaks take place in beginning of June. Now, with the best will in the world, how you can organise anything halfway between May and by, we say the council was to say, okay, the money's there, that's the recommendation, you would not be able to actually get started in terms of not knowing who was going to be there, in terms of the applicants, because you don't have to put them on hold. The people that actually work down there, they would have to be put on hold. And to be perfectly honest, it's not a very good and professional way of dealing with it. The second part of the motion allows the very things that the councillors that have spoken up for the amendment on, in support of that allows that to happen within this financial year. And if we were to get a report coming back later on in the year that says that the officers, having looked and reviewed the situation, feel that for the following year, that is 2017, 2018, there is no need or requirement now for Midlothian Council to have a service level agreement with the Lothian Convalescent Home, then that would be a debate and a discussion that we would have in this chamber, Deputy Provost. So I've got no problem with that, and that's why it's saying within the 12 months that we have that. That's why the second part of the motion was put in there, because I'm aware that you can't just keep on saying, oh, aye, it's good value for money, that's it, fine, you've had it for the last 15 years, so therefore everything stays the same. We're all recognising that things are changing, things are different, money is tighter. But all I was saying in the first part of the motion is that we get pretty good value for money, in my opinion. But I'm sure professional officers can go away, they can have a look at that, and they can come back later on in the year with a report. But all I'm saying today is, for goodness sake, reinstate it for the year 16-17. That's all I'm asking for here today, and I would hope that people see the value in what they do.
So we have a motion which is proposed by Councillor Imrie, seconded by Councillor Pottinger, and an amendment proposed by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Parry. So could I ask for those in favour of the amendment to show their hands, please?
Seven.
And those in favour of the motion?
6.
So the amendment is carried. Thank you. Could we invite back the councillors who have left the chamber, please?
Okay, we move to item number 8.1, page 13 in your agenda. Recommendations on page 19. Councillor, Mr. Lorry.
Thank you, Provost. This report seeks endorsement of the summary Single Midlothian Plan and its adoption as the strategic plan for Midlothian Council, under which the Council's service plans operate. It also sets out legal requirements of the new Community Empowerment Act relating to community planning, specifically those relating to the fact that the Community Planning Partnership will become a statutory board and the fact that new duties are going to be on our partner organisations. The background to this is the Council agreed in 2012-13 to adopt the Single Midlothian Plan as its strategic plan. The Single Midlothian Plan uses an evidence-based approach, as was explored at the briefing for members this morning. It's underpinned by data and analysis and aims to drive improvement in meeting the differing needs of local populations and client groups. It seeks to achieve demonstrable improvements in people's lives, focusing upon reducing outcome gaps within populations and between areas. And the overall focus, of course, is in terms of reducing outcome inequalities. At paragraph 2.3, the planning cycle which has informed the revision to the Single Midlothian Plan is set out, and members will note that the recommended priorities for 2016 to 19 are set out in paragraph 2.4. And these result from a wide-ranging process of data gathering, analysis and consultation. It's clear, I think, that these new priorities build on work previously undertaken within Midlothian. They recognise the importance of learning and attainment from early years through to positive destinations, the criticality of addressing health inequalities as set out in the Midlothian Integrated Joint Board Strategic Plan, and a significant negative impact of inequalities in economic circumstances and opportunity. Paragraph 2.5 reaffirms the commitment to capacity building, co-production, prevention, early intervention and improved access to services, the three approaches previously adopted by the Community Planning Partnership. And similarly, paragraph 2.6 reaffirms the commitment to the three priority communities where the outcomes gap is at its greatest. And further details of the work being done in relation to these priority communities is set out at paragraph 3.5. The recommendations are on page 19, and Council is asked to note the legal requirements of the Community Empowerment Act as set out in Appendix 1 and approve and endorse a summary Single Midlothian Plan 2016-17 as the strategic document for Council service planning. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Mr. Lorry. Councillor Johnson.
I propose we accept these recommendations, especially in view of the new or the updated priorities that we have from the CPP conference about reducing the gaps in learning outcomes health outcomes and in our economic circumstances. And I do appreciate that sometimes localities don't just mean east and west or north and south, but there's communities within communities, and we have to acknowledge that too and target deprivation, not just in our specific targeted villages, but there are pockets elsewhere. But I'm happy to approve these recommendations.
Thank you. Okay, the Council happy to accept the recommendations of that report. Thank you very much. Item 8.2 on page 37 of your agenda. On my agenda, if I can find it. The Service Plans 2016-17, a report by Kenneth Lawrie, the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Provost. This report seeks approval for the Council's service plans for 2016-17. Of course, the aim is to ensure that the objectives and targets in the Single Midlothian Plan are matched to the financial and other resources and translated into clear responsibilities for implementation. In that context, the heads of service have developed service plans. Managers and performance officers have been working together with community planning colleagues to ensure alignment between the service plans and overall priorities. And figure 1 on page 37 sets out that planning process. The service plans have been circulated to councillors by email, and copies are available in the members' library. And today the council is asked to approve the 16-17 service plans.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
I think we should approve the service plans. I have read them and it was very dry reading by the time I got to the end, but yes, thank you.
Council happy to accept the recommendations in that report. Thank you. We now move to item 8.3 on your agenda on page 41. The recommendations are on page 43. A report by Mr. Moffat.
Thanks, Provost. This report outlines the concerns that have been raised directly with Lothian Buses in respect of the request to the company to consider an extraordinary dividend of £20 million over a 3-year period from the City of Edinburgh Council. Section 2 of the report provides details of that request, which essentially asks Lothian Buses to consider the impacts that such a request would have for the company. Section 2 further goes on to outline how Midlothian Council's concerns have been raised, both directly with Jim McFarlane, the Chair and Interim Manager of Lothian Buses, and through the regional subgroup, which includes both East and West Lothian colleagues. At this stage, Lothian Buses have been unable to confirm what the potential impacts would be, and they've agreed to meet with the regional subgroup when further information is available. Turning to the recommendations in section 5, Council is asked to note the request from the City of Edinburgh Council to Lothian Buses for an extraordinary dividend over the period 2017 to 2020 to be considered. Note the concern has been raised directly with Lothian Buses in terms of the potential impact this could have on service delivery, particularly in Midlothian. Note that Lothian Buses' commitment to continued fleet investment and its network of services, which clearly would be impacted should an extraordinary dividend be paid out, and agree that the Director of Resources provide a further update when information is available.
Thank you, Mr. Moffat. Councillor Rosie.
Yes, thanks, Ricky. Thanks, Provost. I think that Midwest and East Lothian are right to have concerns, as has the Lothian Buses Board on this one. As I think Edinburgh Council is considering to ask for an extraordinary dividend of £20 million over the period 2017-20 to help fund a tram extension. The concern is that the use of Lothian Buses profits will undoubtedly impact on the bus services and the replacement and maintenance of the fleet. This could affect, and probably will, affect bus routes throughout Midlothian, and I'm sure that Edinburgh, in the setting up of the Transport for Edinburgh, is a move to integrate buses and trams, and there's no doubt that areas out with Edinburgh will suffer if they are allowed this extraordinary dividend. And I am happy also to accept the amendment from Councillor Imrie on that one, and ask that we accept this as amended and follow the other recommendations. Yeah.
Councillor Imrie.
Thanks. Just to put it back into the structure that it should be put in now, I'll move the additional bullet point. The reason I do that, Provost, is that I thank the officials for what they've done so far, but I actually do think that the three leaders of the authorities affected should be meeting with the leader of the authority that suggested the extraordinary dividend in the first place, or made the request there, and actually cross-party put the position to them. Now, all three authorities, that's East, West and Midlothian, and I know West Lothian they still are a shareholder because they used to have buses going out there. They don't have them anymore, but they're still a shareholder, so they still have an interest because the impact and effect of the three surrounding authorities could be something that I actually struggle for words to think what that impact could be. And I think Councillor Rosie was right when he alluded to the fact that, in particularly Midlothian, who has enjoyed a first-class service from Lothian buses, that could be really under threat. I remember in this council chamber some 2 years or 2.5 years ago putting the warning sign up when Transport for Edinburgh was being created, saying that look out because the trams are coming for you. Now, that's not because I'm against the trams in any way, shape or form. That's because as soon as you put two organisations together and you start to take the money out, it doesn't go back into that particular organisation, i.e. in this case the buses. And we've enjoyed dividends over the years, Provost. We have enjoyed a good working relationship with Lothian buses. The managers themselves are uncertain about what direction Lothian buses is going to go in. Lothian buses is far by the best equipped fleet, the newest fleet in the whole of the UK, perhaps outside London, and I'll counter by saying that. But nevertheless, when people are leaving buses in their droves and the stats show up right over the country, Lothian buses is the only fleet that's not only holding what they've got, but increasing that. And I think there's a real threat to all of our communities. And that's why I really do feel that thank you to the officers for what they've done thus far, and they'll continue to do that. And as a result of the debate that we had here before, we ended up getting the regional subgroup, and I appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that. But I just think it has to be raised at the second level, and that is to go politically on that. And if the three leaders go in there and meet with the leader of Edinburgh Council and explain the threat to those areas that surround and supply people that work in Edinburgh, and if you want to put people back onto the roads, and we're having a hard enough job getting them off the roads, if you just carry on and cancel buses, because that is the beginning of the end. And I really do think that we might have our differences, dare I say, between Lothian buses and ourselves about what level of service we would like to have, but nevertheless that debate will go on. There'll be no debate if there's no Lothian buses, so therefore that's why I wanted the amendment to be, well, not the amendment, an additional bullet point to be in there today, and thankfully Councillor Rosie and the administration are going to take that on board, and I think hopefully we can get a good outcome to what we're going to be doing. Thanks very much, Provost.
Thank you. I'm happy to accept the recommendations in the report with a plus the additional bullet point. Thank you. We move to item 8.4 on page 51 on your agenda. Recommendations are on page 56. A report by Mr Muffet on the Household Waste Charter.
Thanks, Provost. At the meeting of 9th of February this year, Council were given an update in respect of the Household Waste Charter. And the purpose of this report is asking Council to sign up to the Household Waste Charter. In section 2.1, I've outlined the drivers behind the Charter, which in particular focuses on increasing recycling rates, and it also allows Council a stronger voice in the procurement market in relation to recyclable materials. And Council will be aware of some of the concerns that have been raised in that regard, where the market is currently. In section 2.2, I've confirmed that during discussions with Zero Waste Scotland, they have intimated that signing up to the Charter and having them assist in looking at collection models does not require it to implement the changes if the Council feels it's not in their best interest to do so. Section 2.3 outlines the governance of the Household Waste Charter project. And in section 3.1 and 2, that confirms the resource required to carry out the modelling will in the main come from Zero Waste Scotland. In terms of future service delivery, this will allow for the modelling of various collection frequencies. I'd probably refer to some that you may have been aware of in the press, for example, Fife moving to 4 weekly residual collections in some areas. And it would also look at what should be collected in each container to maximise the value of that material. It would also allow us to look at the processing of the recyclates. For example, should the Council take on that responsibility going forward? So we'd be able to bottom that out and look at what the best options are going forward. As I say, crucially, signing up to the Household Charter allows the Council to be best placed to take advantage of resources that are being made available. And indeed, should the Council wish to make any changes, there would be support to bring those resources forward at appropriate time. So referring to the recommendations in section 5, Council is asked to sign up to the Household Waste Charter, nominate up to 4 elected members, and their purpose would be to participate in a working group to consider the potential collection options, because the likelihood is, and based on other councils, we could generate something like 20 models. So it's the ability to look at that and agree a consensus of what should be taken forward to Council for consideration. And finally, to instruct the Director of Resources to come forward with an update report in due course. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Moffat. Councillor Rosie.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks again, Ricky. Yeah, not a lot to say. Ricky's covered what's in the report here, other than to say that it's good to see that there's no risk to the Council in signing up to this charter, and we're not bound to changes to our collection systems other than we agree to. Anything that will assist in generating and retaining the best collective value from waste streams whilst increasing recycling rates across Scotland has to be welcomed. And therefore, I would ask the Council to agree that we sign up to the Household Waste Charter, nominate 4 elected members to participate in the working group forum to consider the potential collection options, and instruct the Director to come forward with a report in due course and outline recommendations of the working group for consideration by the Council. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much. I agree with everything Derek said, and our nominations from our side are going to be Ian Baxter and Derek Rosie, and we invite our Labour colleagues to propose 2 people too.
Chair, Provost, we would support the recommendations as well, and move the councillors. Sorry, I'm Rowan Muirhead. Sorry, I'm reading my script here. I was going to be just about move myself there. No, it's Councillor Rowan Muirhead.
Okay. Councillor Milligan, did you want to?
Yeah, can I just say that we agree as well. I'm quite happy to second Adam's nominations. We welcome Cass' announcement that Ian's now part of the SNP team.
12 quid at the end of this. Can we have a seconder for the Councillor Johnson's nominations, please? Thank you, Councillor Beattie. Council happy to accept the 4 members onto that body. Thank you. We move to item 8.5 on page 57 of your agenda. A report by Mr Blair on the protocol for webcasting.
Thanks, Provost. At the December meeting, Council agreed to introduce webcasting of meetings involving the Council and Cabinet. In light of this decision, a draft protocol, as detailed in the appendix to the report, has been established, and today Council is invited to approve the protocol. Thanks, Provost.
Councillor Johnson.
Unfortunately, Kelly was going to speak on this and she's had to rush off, but we agree to the recommendations. We think it's a good idea that we're going to start webcasting, and especially in light of these microphones not working too often. Thank you.
We're just wondering, Provost, if there's going to be a make-up room next door for us before we start the council.
That'll be for you. I'm okay.
Some will need more than others.
Councillor Montgomery.
If the microphones are not working, I mean, will the webcast still pick up people speaking? Because I'm not being funny, I mean, because obviously, well, let's just say it was a silent movie. And after the day's performance, maybe get Charlie Chaplin to come in and actually make a speech as well after some of the stuff I've listened to today. I just wonder if the microphones are actually picked up with the webcast, or is that done separately?
It's a whole system. It's a whole system?
Yeah, as part of the December considerations, two elements, replacing the microphones in addition to introducing webcasting. I won't comment on the actors in the movie.
Council happy to agree to the protocol. Thank you. We move to item 8.6 on your agenda, page 63, and a report by Dr. Smith, People's Intake Limits.
Thank you. Thank you. The purpose of this report is to highlight to members areas where there's pressure on primary 1 school places and S1 places at the Laswade Centre. The report outlines the action we are taking to ensure that all catchment pupils will have a place at one of their catchment schools from August 2016. Section 2 outlines the background to this report and highlights that due to the progress of house building and the popularity of certain schools, we will have to apply intake limits. This is in keeping with the Scottish Government guidance on how to determine a school's capacity, and to ensure that whilst the school may have capacity at the higher end of the school, to ensure it will have capacity in the future. In addition, there are statutory class size maximums for primary classes as set out in the Education Act. For example, 25 pupils in P1, 30 pupils P2-3 and 25 pupils in a composite class. Section 3 outlines where the number of children exceed the primary 1 capacity of that school, and where we will apply intake limits from August this year. As members will understand, this is a moving feast, and the numbers change on a weekly basis depending on whether families have registered children at school. So Appendix 1, which was correct at the time of writing the report, has now changed slightly. We have increased the intake limits at Burnbrae to 66 pupils, that was as of this morning, as this school can accommodate this number next session, and we estimate that they can be accommodated in future years without having to change the pupil intake. By applying these limits, it will ensure that every catchment child has a place at one of their catchment schools. Section 3 outlines an intake limit of 300 pupils that will be applied to Laswade Centre from August 2016 to ensure that all catchment pupils and pupils where a sibling already attends the school will have places. Members will be aware that there is a process where parents applying for placing requests for the children to attend school out with their catchment school, and we are working on these applications at present. Where we have refused a place, the parents have the opportunity to appeal that decision. However, the Education Scotland Act sets out clear criteria in law why we could refuse a placing request, and the work we've undertaken in applying the cap to the admissions meets the legal requirement as set out in the Act. Due to the work undertaken by the team, I just want to re-emphasise to members that the report will ensure that all catchment pupils entering Primary 1 and children entering S1 at Laswade Centre will have places at their catchment school in August this year. And this is the result of a lot of hard work by the team, and this work will continue through the catchment review programme as we go forward. Section 5 outlines that the Council is requested to note the content of the report and to apply the intake limits as outlined, and also ask to note the change at Burnbrae from 63 pupils to 66. I'm happy to take questions, and Sandra Banks can assist on the more technical aspects of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Councillor Constable.
Thank you, Provost. Yes, I'm going to thank Mary and Sandra for this report. It is good that we do guarantee all our catchment pupils a place in their catchment school. And we have always, in Midlothian, we've always been very generous in accommodating requests where possible. And I'm glad to see that this will continue. But of course, we are an expanding county. We have some very popular schools. I'm glad to see so. Obviously, limits will have to be placed. Other than that, I'm very happy to move the recommendations.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Provost, and thank you, Mary, for that report. I've just a question on the appeals panel, because I was actually contacted just this week by one of the parents affected at Burnbrae. Now, Burnbrae, as an example, but the same applies to all of them, has 63 pupil intake for primary 1. Now, if those, and you can confirm if all of those places are allocated at the start, and then we go into the appeals process, if somebody wins their appeal, does that take us over the 63, or do you have spaces allocated just in case? And how do you estimate how many you're going to require? How does the appeals panel work?
In the case of Burnbrae, we aren't. In fact, as Mary has just said, we're going with 66 places. So at the moment, we have 65 children who are going to be allocated a place. So at the moment, there's just one potential extra place for either another child that might come into the catchment, or indeed a place that we might lose on appeal. So if it goes beyond that, then we will be going beyond the 66.
Right, so if we take that example in 66, so saying, for instance, we get more parents move into the catchment area, and so we're oversubscribed, essentially. Do you allocate all those 66 places before the appeals panel sits? In which case, what happens if somebody wins their appeal?
In this case, we are allocating the places because of the level of demand. In normal circumstances, where we know there may be more children coming through, we would reserve places. But for example, we will operate 3 primary 1 classes at Burnbrae for next session. So we can actually for next session accommodate more by way of accepted pupils if there are specific children that the appeals panel decides we should allocate places to.
Sorry, you're saying that if the appeals panel accepts more pupils, we could go over the 66 in that example?
Yes, we could. But it's going to create a problem for us in future years. And that's because, I mean, the reason we've chosen 66 is that 66 can be formed into 2 straight classes of 33 from primary 4 to primary 7. But it is perfectly possible that through the process that is yet to get us to August, that we are going to end up with more children. But we are still working through how that could be accommodated. And that's what Mary referred to in terms of the catchment review programme.
Councillor Muirhead.
Yeah, this is the first time I can recall seeing a paper coming here that details the pupil intake limits in the fashion that it does at the moment. And we had a concern that if this was a decision of the council, which couldn't be reversed for 6 months, how does that place us in terms of the appeals? You know, how can we then make a decision that's counter in a committee that's counter to a decision that's made by the council? And it's been pointed out to me today that what the paper asks for is for us to note basically what are officer decisions in terms of the the limits here, and I think it's important that we get that, because otherwise we would have difficulties when it came to any meaningful appeals. It almost would render the appeals just a waste of time if we weren't able in any circumstance to take a decision that meant that these would be breached. So it was just to kind of make that point.
Dr. Smith.
Can I just clarify? We've put a cap on the numbers. So therefore, if it did come to appeal, we have reasons in the Act as to why we would refuse a placement. And they are, if an extra teacher would have to be employed, the council would have to spend a significant amount to extend or alter the accommodation or facilities. An extra teacher would be employed or additional class formed at a future stage in the child's education. And that's what I was saying. There may be spaces at the higher end, but not at the lower end. The number of children at a school would exceed the school's capacity, and to reserve places for children coming in. So as we move, there's other reasons as well. So as we move forward, you know, with our more popular schools and with the schools where the new buildings coming, we need to be clear about what our capacities are, that when we're refusing a placement, that we're very clear about the reasons we're refusing a placement.
Mr. Bourne, the religious representative.
Yeah. Thanks, Provost. Just a few brief comments. Bob referred to house building. There's no doubt there's this huge growth in Midlothian, and I suspect we're going to see papers like this probably every year. And in some ways it's quite exciting and it's quite challenging for us. It certainly justifies that over the last decade and a bit we've built so many new schools and increased our capacities, and it shows how important that's been. I think it also shows the importance of the catchment area review that we are currently undertaking, and you know, we are going to get more pressure at various points in the system. So I would reiterate how much I support this catchment review, whether it be the Bonnyrigg Rosewell area or the RC primary schools. And finally, prior to the meeting, I was reassured, although it's actually emerged in the debate today, that any RC youngster appearing during the year, it relates to a point made earlier, will be catered for, as they always have been in Midlothian. So it's a very interesting paper, and I await developments. Thank you.
Council now happy then to accept the recommendations on page 66 of the report. Thank you. Item 8.7 on page 69 of your agenda, naming the new primary schools in Bilston and North Gore Bridge, a report by Dr. Smith, Director Education, Communities and Economy.
This report is just to advise Council on the process and the outcome of naming the new primary schools in Bilston and North Gore Bridge and the community engagement with the decision-making process. Section 2 sets out the background, and you'll note that the shortlisted names for Bilston were Bilston Primary, Bilston Glen Primary, Castle Law Primary, Pentland Primary and Rainbow Primary. The top four were based on the local history of the area, and the bottom one was based on the youngsters at the school, what they wanted it called. Sadly, we're not having a Rainbow Primary in Midlothian. The shortlisted names for North Gore Bridge were Arneson Primary, Arneson Park Primary, Gore Glen Primary, Pentland View and White House Primary, and it was agreed to call it Gore Glen Primary. This was based on extensive consultation and lots of graphs, and believe me, the graphs that you've got are only some of them. This is the abridged version of the consultation that took place. So this was about involving the community in the naming of the new schools. The schools are very much involved in the uniforms, picking the badges. All of that is going on just now. And you'll know from earlier reports that we've actually appointed the new head teachers in these schools. So it's very exciting as we move forward. So as we move to section 6, the recommendations, the Council is requested to note that the new primary school will be named Bilston Primary School, and note the new primary school in North Gore Bridge will be named Gore Glen Primary School. Thank you.
Councillor Constable.
Yes, it's not a big brainer to call it Bilston Primary, but I'm really glad that name's been accepted. When appointing these heads, I was very pleased to note that there are very active parents' councils already in position, and we look forward to them proceeding. The new heads are very dynamic, and we're looking forward to the schools being a big success.
Councillor Muirhead.
It is an exciting time for both these communities, and it's great that we're in a situation where we can have both the head teachers in place well in advance of the schools opening and do a lot of preparatory work. And I think it's actually a testament to STV that it took 10 pages to report here that, on the naming of the school, but never mind.
Council happy to accept the recommendations of the report. Thank you.